Not far from Cincinnati, in a town called Petersburg, Kentucky, is the Creation Museum. From the museum's website, we read, the state-of-the-art 70,000 square foot museum brings the pages of the Bible to life, casting its characters and animals in dynamic form and placing them in familiar settings. Adam and Eve live in the Garden of Eden, children play, and dinosaurs roam near Eden's rivers. The serpent coils cunningly in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Majestic murals, great masterpieces brimming with pulsating colors and details provide a backdrop for many of the settings. In the museum, they have kids with animatronic dinosaurs. On their blog, they have such entries as Big Bang exploding the myth and is evolution possible? Now, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired about the science versus religion, Darwin versus God debates. They don't make sense to me. I believe in science, and I'm religious. I believe in God, and evolution, and the Big Bang, and I know the universe isn't really 55,778 years old. Now, we can use scientific language, scientific examples to give life to our Judaism. For example, Rabbi Harold Kushner relates a conversation he had with a physicist. The subject was whether Newton's second law, the tendency towards chaos, was an argument for or against the existence of God. Rabbi Kushner writes that after he published something about this conversation, he received a letter from a biologist claiming that he should have spoken to a biologist rather than a physicist. Had he done so, wrote the biologist, he would have had a stronger case for God. Apparently, the laws of physics and of biology demonstrate different principles. Take, for example, wrote the biologist, the case of a jar of marbles. Shake it, and the marbles become totally mixed up. On the other hand, if you think about the growth of a human fetus, it starts out as a group of undifferentiated cells, and after some weeks, some of those cells become eyes, some turn into lungs, others fingers, etc., etc. What was totally random became totally orderly. This is the opposite of Newton's second law. In the case of a fetus, instead of moving from order towards chaos, it moves from chaos towards order. Isn't this, writes Rabbi Kushner, God's work? Well, I think that's interesting, and it's a way to give more life to our religious language, but I don't think that's really about religion versus science. I'm not interested in a debate trying to prove that there is a God from science, and I don't think I'll get very far trying to prove God from our chapters that we chanted in Genesis. So let's turn back to the Creation Museum. Another blog post on the website asked, is Genesis relevant in today's world? I would answer yes. But if we read Genesis as a science book or history, it is dangerous. Beresheet, Genesis, is meant to be read for meaning, not as a textbook. Our sacred text is here to bring meaning. So let us begin in the beginning. One of the most famous lines in the English language, although it comes from Hebrew, is, "In the beginning God created." And in fact, this is a mistranslation. A better reading would be, "When God was about to create," or "at the beginning of God's creating." In Hebrew it is, "Beresheet bara Elohim." Now, if we remember back to Hebrew school, we know that the word Beresheet begins with the letter bet. I want to focus on this bet for a little bit. Our ancient rabbis did. The sage Rabbi Yonah said in the name of Rabbi Levi, "Why was the world created with a bet?" In other words, why not any other letter like Aleph, the first letter? What can we learn from bet about creation? Rabbi Levi's answer is this: just as the bet is closed at the sides but open in front, You are not permitted to investigate what is above and what is below, what is before and what is behind. Right? It's kind of like that. On face value, to our contemporary ears, this sounds like a pretty anti-science statement. The first letter of the first word of the first chapter of the first book of the Torah tells us that science is futile. But wait, I don't think this is what the rabbis are saying. Teacher of my teachers, Rabbi Eugene Mahali, in his beautiful book, The Song of Creation, that imagines the ancient study house where this question was asked, he expounds it thus: accept, embrace this created world as it is made known to you. The voice from Sinai, that insistent voice which we have internalized as a people, the Sinai within us, daily pleads, do not dissipate your energy and your effort in an illusory escape from the inevitable tensions, the pain and ugliness and grandeur of the arduous creative process. Cosmos inheres in and emerges from the chaos of becoming. Face this human world, search, investigate, study it, and find your role in it. Work with it, improve and perfect it. The potential meaning and order are there for you to discover and actualize. That is your vocation as a people, your terrible, glorious destiny. Wow, all that from one letter. I want to focus on one line from Mahali. Cosmos inheres in and emerges from the chaos of becoming. It's exactly what our Bar Mitzvah Ben taught us about the chaos of the Leviathan, and it's our job to bring cosmos, to bring order. When we look at the world, especially the world we see today, we often see and feel chaos. War, famine, natural and human-caused, environmental destruction. What is the point of creation if it only brings misery, we ask ourselves. But the rabbis tell us, like God in today's Torah reading, we bring cosmos to the chaos, order to the disorder. This is one of the roles of religion. This is what it means to be created in the divine image. While a scientist's job is to quantify the order or disorder in the universe, the religious Jew's job, according to the Bet of Beresheet, is to work to bring order to the universe. There is order in the universe, and it is our job to bring it to light. This is the meaning of our creation story. There's another interpretation from our sages. The Bet, the first letter of the first chapter of the first book of the Torah, has the numeric value of 2. It intimates the two worlds of traditional Jewish thought, this world and the world to come. This is not earth and heaven, but what is and what could be, the real world and the ideal world. The world was created to be perfected, our rabbis are telling us. In Judaism, God did not create a perfect world. A Hasidic master states, the Eternal One created the world in a state of beginning. The universe is always in an uncompleted state in the form of its beginning. It is not like a vessel at which the master works and finishes it. It requires continuous labor and unceasing renewal by creative forces. Where there are seconds paused by these forces, the universe would return to primeval chaos. These two worlds, what is and what could be, are what drive us to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, and welcome the stranger. There's a story of the Berditcher who once sang the Yom Kippur Eve service, the single most sanctified time in the Jewish holy day cycle. Suddenly he stopped and changed his chant. Dear God, he sang, I see the masses walking by me. I see the crippled, the suffering, the broken. And dear God, I have a question. What are you going to do about it? Then the rabbi stood silently, meditating, waiting for a reply. A small voice from the back of the congregation whispered, Reb Levi Yitzchak. Spoke Reb Levi Yitzchak and finally shouted, Reb Levi Yitzchak. at which point the Berditcher turned around to face the congregation. Reb Levi Yitzchak, the voice continued, God did do something about it. God made us. We are here to continue creation and renew the creation towards perfection. This is the meaning of our creation story. Now we have unlocked meaning from the meanings of creation from the first letter, the letter Bet. Let us move on to some of the first words. If we look at the Hebrew words of the opening of our reading, it says, Beresheet bara Elohim. Bara meaning creates, and Elohim meaning God. Note the order of the words. The sage Shimon ben Azai comments, first creation and afterwards God. God is humbled. Shimon continues, only after God provides for the needs of the world does God mention God's name. The rabbis are saying that God is humbled in order for there to be space for a true relationship with humans. God cannot truly be God, and we cannot fully be human without the other, without a relationship. In our creation story, God is in need of relationship, in need of humans. If our rabbis tell us that God is in need of humans, so much the more so, creation tells us that we are in need of each other. Creation is about relationship, and relationship is about responsibility. Can God truly be God without us? In our Aleinu prayer, it states that when creation is perfected, then God will be one. This is our responsibility. This is the meaning of our creation story. So much to learn from a few words of our creation myth. I use the word myth deliberately. It is not science. It is not history. It's not something in a museum, but it is not false. A myth is not a falsehood as the word is commonly used today. A myth is a truth told as a story. This is our story that gives meaning to the truth of what the scientists teach us about the origin of the universe and the evolution of our species. This is our story that gives meaning to our lives as we live in our natural world that is often scary and disturbing, but more often than not, inspirational. Shabbat Shalom.